All right, so we'll jump into objection handling next. So you should already expect objections and clarifying questions, and you should have things pre-scripted out ahead of time. And I'm going to give you some examples that you guys can start with, but as you start to practice this and you're recording your calls and listening back to them, make sure you hear what are those things that continue to pop up and how can you overcome them. Maybe the first thing is price objection. So an example is $2,000 a month is way too expensive for me. So an example response could be, all right, first name, so let's just run through the numbers you gave me. So here I'm going to do the math and say it's not as expensive as you think it is. It's a great investment. So I say, let's run through the numbers. You said you earn $1,000 per customer. That means you only need 2 clients to pay back your investment with me. Furthermore, based on the lead costs you shared with me, I believe we can cut those in half, meaning we would double the number of leads you generate a month, and you'd only need to close X percentage to pay back your investment. On top of that, you're building a list that you can continue to market to. Does that sound like a good investment to you? So I really I paint the picture of how easy this can be. It's really helpful to kind of draw this out. And this is where you're going to be taking some of those sales questions. If you figured out what their lead cost is, maybe they're paying $10 a lead, and it should be costing $2 a lead. Well, then you can really use that and say, I'm going to give you 5x the amount of leads, and you're going to have to only close a much smaller percentage of those people to even pay this back, and you're building an email list. This is a no-brainer, right? So that's one of the first ones. You'll probably get that one a lot. That's one way to handle a price objection. Another objection is bad timing. So you might hear things like, I don't want to do this or I want to do this in the future, or this isn't a priority right now. An example response could be, all right, first name, let me ask you a question. Do you like the idea of achieving X by using quizzes? Does it make sense to you? And so you hear maybe, they'll probably say yeah, I really like the idea. It's interesting. You could say something like, awesome. Well, if you want to try this out, now is the perfect time. As I've stated, I have 3 spots left that will probably be filled by X date based on the calls I have scheduled. And then the prices are going to increase to X. So is saving that X amount of money important to you? All right, so what do you say? Do you want to give this a shot? So what I'm doing here is I'm really pushing the urgency card that we built with our angle, and really tying it back to they said that they think this would be helpful, and then I'm going with the soft ask saying, do you want to give that a shot? All right, another objection that I heard a lot was I want to do this myself. So an example response could be, all right, first name, well, let me ask you a question. If you had the ability to learn from an advertising budget that's, X times larger, so you could say something like, I spend over $1 million on Facebook ads running these campaigns, or over $100,000 on these campaigns, and I have the repetition of doing this with, 15 different clients. Do you think that would help you see results faster and save wasted time and money with experimenting? Of course it would, exactly. And that's one of the greatest advantages in working with us. We get a lot more practice and feedback because we work with X amount of clients in this exact process. And on top of that, I'm practically giving this away compared to my regular pricing. And then you can go into soft close. Do you want to give this a shot? I got this a lot. Don't worry about it. Just have it planned out. All right, so another one is the proof objection. Will this work for me? So this is going to get easier as you specialize and as you get experience. You can also lean on our case studies at first, but this is how I would handle it. So I would use a tactic called feel, felt, found. An example is I understand how you feel apprehensive about trying something that's different than what you normally do to get leads. That's exactly how my client felt, and you could talk about the client when we first started working with them, but what they found was by making a decision and committing to this strategy, they were able to see X results. What do you say? Do you want to give that a shot? And you go right back into a close. So an example could be, someone's worried about, if I'm working with a naturopathic, they're worried about, well, is this actually going to work for me? And you could say, I had a client, Alan Christensen, and he was worried about it himself too. He wasn't sure, he waited 2 months. So that's how he felt. I understand how you feel. And then what he found was once we got this in place, here was the results. We were able to generate 20 to 30 new consultations for him a week. He was closing 57% of those. And he was really disappointed that he didn't start working with us sooner. So that's kind of how you handle one like that. I'll give you a couple examples if someone wants to delay. These are some more objections. I need to talk to my partner. An example response here is okay, well, once you talk with them, if they're on board, are you ready to move forward today? And this is a good spot to figure out if it's actually a no for them and they're just using that as an excuse. And then you can say, okay, so what's really holding you back then? So there's a lot of times where you've probably been in the same position. You're being sold something and you don't want to tell them actually what it is. You should be drawing those out. Objection number 2, something I heard a lot was, send me the contract to review or send me an email summary. What I would often say is sure, I can definitely send that to you, but it'll be exactly as they described, and then you repeat the pricing in terms. So were there some specific questions you had about that? So I would always go back to this because a lot of times you solve it right there just by going through it, clarifying it, and then really digging into it versus just letting them off the hook and getting out of that call. After something like that, you can come back to the surgeon and say, I want to remind you we have these 3 case studies spot. They're probably not going to last more than X days based on the calls I have scheduled. If you're interested in doing this, now is the time. Do you want to move forward? So another soft close again. Another objection that we would get is, yes, but I don't have a credit card on me. So my response to this was always, no problem. I'm going to wait on the line while you go get it. So this sometimes came up with people that were like really like risk adverse, and they were like, or not risk adverse, they were like very afraid of confrontation. So always stay on this. I've had people where we got it all the way to the end. They're like, yes, I'm in. I need to grab my credit card, and then they just ghost. So you want to figure out what it is like that they're dealing with and be able to help them. Another easy trick you can use is offering bonuses to help push people over the edge if they're close. So some of these things, they may come up naturally. I think it's a good idea to kind of think through like what are some like really good value add-ons that you can give and aren't going to take a lot of extra time or money or expenses for you to do. So some examples is like we would talk with people and they like wouldn't have an autoresponder set up. So what we did is we created this autoresponder like swipe copy. We created like a set of 7 emails that you'd send after the quiz. It worked really well for us. We made a lot of money. We had examples to show. We're giving it away to you in the guide, so that's something that you could take from us. But it was super valuable, and so it was really easy for us to say, like, if you're willing to get signed up, I'm going to even throw in this extra bonus. It's an autoresponder swipe copy, so it's 7 emails. You just customize it to your own business. It's really easy, but it's going to add thousands of dollars to your business. It's going to make sure that the leads you're getting become engaged. What do you say? Does that sound fair? And so I would use something like that. Like, does that sound fair? Fair enough, like something like that, and then I would go back into the close. All right, so it's really easy to get signed up, and then we'll talk about some closing lines in a minute, but that's basically it. Think through some different things. I have on here, you could upload emails to their CRM, so if they have emails, you could upload it to Infusionsoft or whatever they're using. For you, it probably doesn't take very much time, but for them, it could be a huge hassle if they don't know how those systems work. Another thing, an example is like if you're working with a doctor's office or something like that where they're selling high-ticket people, just like I'm giving you a sales script, you could give them a sales script. So it's like it just makes it that much easier. And at the end of the day, you really want these people to get extra results. So one of the things that we do is like we could give away these bonuses in the sales process, or you could sell them. And if they didn't require the bonuses, but it's really going to help them anyways, just give it to them after the fact. And they should be really happy and like because you've undersold and over delivered. So that's a really great card. Remember, like, don't forget like the urgency card that you can really push. That's a huge angle, and I don't think you should have to go through a ton of objections if you like really use that and position that well. So let's jump into these closing lines that I talked about. So real quick, before we get into the lines, I just want you to know you don't have the sale until you've actually run their card. So I've had it a lot where people are like, yeah, this sounds great. I'm just gonna like get you a card tomorrow. There's always lines like that. You haven't closed them. So make sure you do whatever you can to try and close people on the same call. And here's some closing lines you can use. So the first one is like an assumptive close. So you're assuming the sale. So like something I would say is, getting started is easy. We just need to schedule your kickoff call. It looks like we have availability on Tuesday or Wednesday. Which day would be best for you? And then so sometimes you'll have people like say, oh, Tuesday. And then you say, okay, like let me just make sure I have your name, your email, your phone number correct. Awesome. All right, what card would you like to use? So this is combining with closing lines I'm going to continue to use. But the purpose here is like if you feel like they're close, use an assumptive close and just assume the sale and you're just leading them forward. So an example of this, I had this happen to me in the past. I remember when we were buying water for our office and the big like 5-gallon jugs. And I remember going through and they're telling me how much it is, and then so they did the assumptive close on me. They just went forward like, all right, when would you like these to start getting delivered? And in the moment, I knew what was happening, but I think I was actually thankful for it because I was going to tell them like, oh, like let me talk to my business partner about it. But in reality, like that's not something you really, a lot of these decisions aren't things that you need to run by people. You can make the decision yourself. You just need to be pushed over the edge. So in that case, I knew what was happening. I actually appreciated that they pushed me forward through it. So an assumptive close could be really effective. All right, the closing line number 2, I just kind of like briefly got into this. Okay, great, what card would you like to use? So in my case, like I never worried about or never cared if they used a Visa, Amex, like whatever card. It didn't matter to me. I just typed in the numbers and the expiration date and the zip code. But it's a really easy way to kind of get into the conversation because usually you say, what kind of card would you like to use? All right, I'm ready when you are. So it's way easier than just saying like, what's your credit card number? It's just a little like less threatening, and it's easy to get in that situation. So I really like that line, even if you don't care like what card they're using. A couple like soft closes, things that you should be using these throughout your whole script. So like, do you want to give it a shot? Another one, do you want to take one of those 3 case study spots? So go through like a couple like closing lines, like you can copy these, and I recommend you do. You can come up with some more yourself, but continue to use them throughout the whole pitch. All right, so lastly, you really want to try and close these people on the same call. Like if you're selling at the pricing that we did, for most people that's affordable and they can make it work. But if you've gone through all of your objection handling, you brought everything out, you've maybe gone through your bonuses, you've gone through a bunch of closes, you're running short on like the end of your call, they really do actually have to like think about this or talk with a partner. Make sure you schedule up a follow-up call on that call. So say like, all right, well, let me answer any final questions you may have. Like, is Tuesday a good time for us to follow up? Schedule it, send them the calendar invite. That was something that I didn't do when I first started doing sales. And like once I started doing it, it started increasing sales a lot. Now, if someone does do a scheduled follow-up call with you, you have to like go through the whole thing of getting them excited again and getting them in the emotional state where they understand what they're getting. But scheduling a follow-up call is way better than like having to chase them through email and make it a priority again. At least putting it on their calendar makes it somewhat of a priority. So schedule these, but only do it if you have to. Next, like I know like going through this video training, I hope this has been helpful for you, but if you want to reference our guide has everything of the sales script written out for you. It has some more like explanation, so I think that might be helpful for you. Make sure to check it out if you're interested. And finally, don't worry about being perfect. You're gonna need like a lot of practice. You're gonna have to study sales. I'm gonna give you some education books and opportunities in the next section, and you're gonna probably have to improve your script and dial it in. But a lot of sales is just around confidence. So like being able to say things confidently, being able to ask questions confidently. So what I would say is like run with a script like this, confidently go through it, like, give it 5-10 shots or something. And if you think you can make some improvements, make some improvements, but don't get discouraged if it doesn't start working right away. Like I said at the beginning of this training, like even if you're not great at sales, you're gonna get better as long as you like work on this. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I shared with you like when that salesperson came in, he had no sales experience. He was a consulting like client at Deloitte or employee at Deloitte. No sales experience. I barely had a script together. It was literally just like some bullet points to go through step by step. So don't worry about it. If you followed everything so far, you're going to be in a really great position.